9. Cal. Cal cursed as the thin metal wire broke, jamming the lock's inner mechanism. He slammed his hand against it, the dull clang drawing yelps and whimpers from several of the cage's occupants. He scowled at the prefect lying at his feet and gave him a kick for good measure. Where's Artie when I need him? He muttered. The sound of boots echoed down the corridor, drawing closer to Cal's position with each second. The caged hollowborn whimpered again, pressing themselves against the back of the cage. Cal's jaw tightened, his scowl deepening. The prefects were drawing close, and Shay and Artie were waiting for him outside. He was already late. Taking a deep breath, Cal drew Leif's blade, jagged and broken, and centered himself. He pushed down against the rise of adrenaline flooding his limbs. Panicked movements never helped. If he wanted to get out of this alive, he needed to remain calm, alert. No one make a sound, he whispered, hoisting the dead prefect up. A quick glance around the corner told him all he needed to know. He kicked hard against the cage door and backed against the opposite wall, the prefect's weight heavy in his arms. What was that? A young voice called out. Footsteps quickened in Cal's direction. Cal counted the seconds before the prefects arrived. As soon as the first prefect came into sight, Cal shoved the dead body into him. The prefect yelped as he crashed into the wall. What the fuck? Cal didn't let the second prefect finish. He drove the tip of the jagged blade into his throat, then yanked the blade free and ran it across the first prefect's throat. Both prefects collapsed in a heap, grasping at their wounds. Cal stood over them, watching for any signs of life, his breath steady. He wiped his blade on his torn jacket sleeve, the leather worn and the padding frayed. He couldn't remember where he'd gotten it, but even in its current condition, it stopped swords and Gift from taking him out in one go. Good enough for now. Spotting a ring of keys on one of the dead prefect's hips, Cal snatched them and turned back to the cage. Maybe my luck's turning, he said to himself. He unlocked the cage and stepped inside, offering his hand to the cowering hollowborn. They sank further into the corner, crawling over one another. It's all right. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help. He raised his hand to show them the lack of a brand. I'm hollowborn like you. Look. But it didn't matter. They were too terrified to move, their squeals intensifying with every step he took. Fine, Cal growled through gritted teeth. Stay here, then. He left the cage door open and made his way to the back of the warehouse, to the rendezvous point Shay had set up. Not everyone was ready to pick up a sword and fight. Undis's hollowborn were treated worse than Igni's. In Igni, the hollowborn were only a problem if they got in the way. But here in Undis, folk would be rounded up for even being suspected. How anyone could stand for such treatment was beyond him. But Cal could only do so much for them. If they wanted freedom, they'd have to take it. A contact had leaked information about a shipment of prefect weapons being stored near the docks. Weapons Barkas's rebellion desperately needed. Cal moved through the warehouse with ease, Shay having already cleared any prefects that might have given him trouble. He swung the back door open, greeted by her impatient scowl. You're late, she said, flicking a dagger between her fingers. Got caught up. Nothing to worry about, Cal replied. He didn't look her in the eye as he walked past, instead heading directly for the canal boat that bobbed up and down in the water. Artie waited inside, hunched over and inspecting the gift engine. Artie hadn't changed much since Cal had met him. Even years later, he was still small for his age. Despite everything, he'd retained his youthful naivete. The years had not been so kind to Cal. Not that he cared. His mop of black hair had grown out, long enough to cover his eyes when needed. Constant conflict had shaped his body into something lithe and agile, more weapon than person. It suited him fine. He didn't need anything else, didn't deserve it. It didn't matter how many missions he had to do, how many warehouses he had to raid, prefects he had to go through. Every step brought him closer to his true target. He flexed the ache out of his hand as he took a seat on the boat, the markings from Igny's chain still clear on his skin. He kept the wound bandaged, long past caring why it had never healed. That was the benefit of constant fighting. It had taught him how to deal with pain, taught him how to live with it. Did they see your face? Shay loomed over him, her arms folded tight. Were you seen? I took care of it, Cal replied, not bothering to look up at her. All of them? She pushed, her question laced with accusation. Cal didn't respond, instead choosing to wipe the blood from Leif's jagged blade, making a showing of sheathing it after. His gloating was short-lived. Raised voices echoed from the warehouse. The dead prefects had been found. Workers were missing from their cages. Shay shut her eyes and breathed heavily through her nose. Artie, she said through gritted teeth, get the boat moving. Artie jumped to his task, his hand rimmed with green light as he activated the gift engine. The boat juddered to life, easing along the canal. What did you do? Shay demanded. Killed prefects. Isn't that what we do? Cal shot back, matching Shay's frustration. No. We eliminate targets and potential threats. We do not kill anyone we feel like. Cal stood, glowering at her. You know all about targets and potential threats, huh? At least I follow orders. Is that so? Because I remember a time when you took matters into your own hands and ended up destroying half a city. The boat creaked as Shay clenched her fists, her leather gloves straining. The conversation, short as it had been, was over. This wasn't the first ugly conversation they'd had, and Cal suspected it wouldn't be the last. He shoved past her and leaned against the boat's edge, staring back at the warehouse. Watching. Waiting. Did they make it out? Artie asked, glancing back at him. How'd you know? Cal grumbled. Warehouse storage layout. Arms and resources located at the northeast. Makes sense to hold hollowborn laborers at the rear. Ease of transport into or out of the city. Slaves, Artie, not laborers. Indeed. So, did they escape? I don't know. They wouldn't follow me out. Cal's fingers gripped the edge of the boat. They were afraid of me. I am not surprised. You have garnered quite the reputation among Undis's populace, and your visage doesn't exactly inspire. Artie stopped as Cal turned to face him. Ahem. I shall petition Barkus to allow a small team to search for the escapees. The tightness in Cal's chest eased, if only a little. Thanks, Artie, he said, turning back to the warehouse, allowing himself to hope, just for a moment, that the Hollowborns had made it out. Artie, here is good enough, Shay said, signaling for him to cut the gift engine. The canal boat drifted to a lazy halt, its tip bumping against a small wooden dock just a stone's throw away from the warehouse district. Cal, out, Shay said, her tone clipped and no nonsense. What? Barkus will expect a report on what happened. Best you not be at the hideout when I give it. Where am I supposed to go? Cal gruffed, already sheathing his blades and making his way toward the edge of the small boat. Don't know, don't care. Just try not to draw any more attention to yourself. I told you any who saw my face were dealt with, he repeated. Can't take the chance. Can't or won't? Pick one. Out. Cal glared at Shay, searching for something to say that would convey his annoyance. But nothing came to mind. Shay sat back down, turning her back toward him. Uh, Cal? Artie chimed in. By chance, could I run some more tests on those blades of yours? With more time, I'm confident I can discern their origin. Cal considered the request for a moment. Not having his blades left him feeling naked, but he wasn't planning on causing more trouble. Sure, he shrugged, handing both the jagged blade and dagger to Artie. Do your thing. Indeed I shall. Artie beamed, wrapping both blades in cloth and then setting them to one side. He activated his gift, bringing the gift engine to life once more. Shay turned to look at Cal, shaking her head as the boat glided away. Cal waited for a while, watching the boat shrink into the distance. He meandered through the alleyways and back out onto the street, where a crowd of workers flowed around him, uncaring. Weathered men and women in muted overalls, their arms brawny and eyes sunken, hands devoid of a brand, passed by without a glance. They were too focused on their grueling tasks, their lives a cycle of labor and exhaustion. Their lack of attention suited Cal just fine. Less attention meant less trouble. It didn't take him long to find a nearby watering hole. Plenty of such places dotted the workers' district, rowdy at all hours and easy to disappear in. He seated himself at the bar and waved over a dour-looking barmaid. Ale, he said, smacking a coin on the counter with a thud. What kind? We got... Don't care, Cal interrupted. Suit yourself, the barmaid replied, rolling her eyes and plopping the coin in the front of her apron. A Vox screen above the bar flared to life, its flickering image drawing Cal's attention. Several officials appeared on screen, shaking hands and patting each other's backs in some self-congratulating ceremony or another. Here you are, the barmaid said, plunking a tankard of yellow-brown ale in front of him. Cal took a long swig, ignoring the saltwater taste. Ale was ale. It had alcohol. It made him drunk. Helped him forget. No point in being fancy about it. Citizens of Yundis. A familiar voice boomed through the Vox screen. Cal's fingers tightened around his tankard, the liquid sloshing as his hands shook. He glared at the Vox screen, where the Lord Inquisitor stood behind a podium, arms raised as he addressed the crowd. It has been 8 years since the attack on the city of Igni. 8 years since the malicious rebellion's attack. We lost many loyal citizens that day. Udins, who embodied our way of life. Cal bit his tongue, ignoring the cheers from the crowd, and forced himself to focus on his drink. The Lord Inquisitor gestured to someone standing beside him, a figure dressed in long, flowing white robes, wearing a golden mask. Your matriarch, symbol of Udin piety, stands with me. I ask of you, hear her words. Listen to the voice of peace. The matriarch stepped forward, and the roar of the crowd crescendoed for a moment before falling silent. Good people of Yundis, the matriarch said, her soft voice echoing through whatever augments her mask provided. It is my greatest wish that this day be one of remembrance, not only for those who lost their lives, but for those of us who remain. Let us remember what it means to be strong, what it means to work as one. I ask this of you, not as your matriarch, but as a citizen who desires peace above all else. We have the power to leave behind a better world for our children. We need only find the strength to look to our neighbor, whomever they may be, and see them as such. The crowd cheered and clapped as the matriarch bowed low and then stepped back behind the Lord Inquisitor. I invite you all, each and every one, to attend our fair matriarch's upcoming celebration, a night where we show our reverence, our appreciation for her tireless effort. The Lord Inquisitor continued, I speak not as a Daven, not as your leader, but as a loyal follower of peace and unity. For together we are stronger. Together we can weather any disaster the wolves would set upon us. Cal glanced around the bar. Several patrons held their fists against their chests, their brands glowing. For Davens, for Eudos, for unity. The bar crowd roared with appreciation. Glasses clinked high in the air, ale spilled, and fists pumped the air. Cal's shoulder jerked as the closest patron shoved his tankard toward him, waiting. What is it? The man slurred. I'm good, Cal shot back, returning his gaze to his drink. You're not gonna celebrate with us? The drink leaned in close, his breath reeking of ale. I just want to drink in peace. Why, you some kind of all lover or something? Leave me alone, Cal said, his fingers pressing harder against the cold metal of his tankard. Show me your brand. Come on, show it. By now, the drunk's slurred grunting had attracted attention. Several patrons were looking Cal's way, more than one slowly standing. Show me. Cal jerked his hand as the drunk reached out and smashed him in the face with his tankard. The man hit the floor with a thump. Wooden chairs scraped and tables toppled as several men rushed forward. Cal had played this game before. He hid behind his forearms, waiting for his chance. He kicked a chair into another drunk's legs, elbowed the foreman of a missed punch, and rammed the owner's face into the bar with a wet crack. Pain blazed in the base of his skull as something heavy crashed into him. He stumbled, his hand coming away sticky with blood and ale. An uppercut rammed his guts, doubling him over. Boot heels rained down. What in Yundis's tide is going on here? A voice barked above the din. The rain of blows stopped. Cal squinted through clumped strands of ale-soaked hair at a group of prefects in their cheap armor, the heraldry of Yundis embroidered across blue sashes, their hands resting on sword hilts. Call us one of them hollowborn, one of the drunks said, kicking Cal again for good measure. Cal grunted as they hauled him to his feet. He spat blood at a pair of overshined boots, grimacing as gloved fingers grabbed his chin, lifting his gaze. Every day we find more of your filth in this city, the prefect spat. He had an older voice, one tinged by years of superiority and bigotry. Can't you all do us a favor and die like the rats you are? What do you want us to do with him, sir? Asked a prefect at his side. Throw him in a cell. I've got just the thing in mind for this gutter trash. Cal broke free of the hands holding him and pulled his fist back. Something heavy crashed against the back of his head, and the room spun before going dark.